Yes guys, what is happening? So welcome to the channel. So in this video, I'm just going to walk through how to set up your nutrition around running. So this is something that obviously have learned over the course of my running career, you could call it. And especially right now is a good time to speak about it since we've got a race on Sunday. Obviously we've got some long runs and it's about preparing towards that. So obviously the first thing we've got to think about is what is the ultimate goal? Like, is the ultimate goal purely performance, or is there other things involved, i.e. body composition, fat loss, etc.? For 99% of people, it's probably gonna, fat loss or, getting in shape is going to be one part of it, and then performance is going to add on to the side of that. Especially for my clientele, they don't come to me specifically just wanting to run a marathon. Obviously that comes with wanting to change their body composition, and then the running accompanies that as well. So first and foremost, you've got to identify, like, what is the ideal goal for you? Is it fat loss or is it performance? And if it's both, it's something that we really need to look into a little bit more. So when it comes to structuring your food, I'm going to go with this example is if you are looking to drop body fat. So when you're looking to drop body fat, we want to make sure that our calories are in a deficit, we're in a good position, that we are dropping body fat over time. But at the same time, we've got to make sure that we're recovering well, we're fueling well, and that everything is in one. The last thing you want to do is be in a deficit where your energy is already low, your performance with your running is shit, and then you don't recover very well as well. So this is what we want to sort of mix about, and the best thing to do it is set a baseline for your calories. So you can get a calorie calculator, you can do equations, I'll put some stuff in the description for you to do, but you basically want to identify what is your baseline calories. And this is basically down to what you weigh, your activity level on a day-to-day basis. So what we mean by that is your step count, how active you are. Step count's probably the best way to track that. And then number 3 is how many days a week are you resistance training? That's what I would go off. I wouldn't count any sort of running. And this is just to set up your baseline calories. So for example, me, I'm 93 kilos. I train 3 times a week and I have a step count around 6,000 to 8,000 per day outside of running. So based on them calories, I've set myself the calories of a baseline of around 2750. That's enough calories for me to be fueled, but that's enough calories also for me to drop body fat. So since I've been on them calories, I've dropped 4 kilos, close to 10 pounds or more than 10 pounds. And I've been performing really well with running. And again, that's going to help with maintaining muscle mass and so on and so forth. So first and foremost, you've got to identify what that is for you. And then on top of that, we want to work out how many calories we're expending through our activity. So if you have an Apple Watch, a Garmin, a Fitbit, a Whoop, a heart rate monitor on your chest, whatever it is, it'll give you a calorie number that you've expended for each run. So for me on Sunday, for example, the long run, 30 kilometers, 2,500 calories I burned on that run actively. And we know that these activity trackers aren't 100% correct, but they are good to go off. So what you want to think about doing is possibly buying back around 80 to 90% of what that tells you that you've burned on them long runs. And when I mean long runs, I'm probably talking more something over 12k plus. Anything under 12k, you don't really need to recover for or fuel for, etc., unless you're really performing. But the more longer runs, the 12s, the 15s, the 18s, the half marathons, etc., we want to make sure that we're fueling correctly and recovering correctly. So for example, my calories are set 2,750. My watch said I burned 2,500. So on that day, I then bought back around 2,300 on top of that, on top of my 2,750. So it was like a 5,000 calorie day. So I did a little bit differently where I spread that over the Saturday and the Sunday, but I still got that extra 2,200 calories or 2,300 calories back into the system. So that's what you want to sort of think about. And again, is that going to affect fat loss? No, because obviously we're still in a deficit if you think about the expenditure versus what we're taking in. You just had to get your head around that first. So the next step is your pre-race nutrition. So this is the lead up to the race. So obviously we want to make sure for this that we are filling up our glycogen stores, we're getting fueled and ready to go so we can perform at our best. And then number 2 is our salt intake or our electrolyte intake and retaining water. So a good equation is around 5 to 6 grams of carbs per kilo of your body weight. So if you're 100 kilos, 5 to 6 grams of that, so about 500 to 600 grams of carbs, probably 2 days before, so Friday and Saturday if your run is on a Sunday. And then off the back of that, then you can change your macros based on drop your fats down and probably drop your protein down a little bit as well. Obviously, if your goal is to hit 2,750, then you want to make sure that carbs are as high as they can be, while protein's in a good position, while fats may be a little bit lower, but you're still sticking to them 2,750 calories. This is what I mean about performance versus fat loss. Yeah, I said easy way to do that is to just pull down fat intake and then pull down slightly your protein intake and make sure carb is the priority because that's your main fuel source. Other thing I would say is make sure you're salting your meals. Again, people think salt is bad, but it's massively helping with recovery. It's helping you with fueling. It's helping you for the race. So make sure you're salting every meal. And then I'd also recommend if you have electrolytes or you drink electrolytes, having electrolytes every single day. So Friday, Saturday, and the race, the morning of the race, and then during the race as well, which we'll come on to. Nice and simple. Again, talking more the day before, and this is a couple of things I would recommend, is stick to foods that you know the day before. You don't want to go and smash something that you've never eaten before just because it's got loads of carbs in. That gives you obviously your gut distress, your digestive system distress, your digestive tract, etc. So stick to foods that you know, don't go mad. Just stick to the things that you know that you feel comfortable with, you don't get bloated from, potatoes, rice, pasta, oats, bagels, jam, all that sort of stuff. Push carbs towards the end of the day. So what I mean by this is if your goal is still fat loss, be strategic with it. So obviously the closest the race it is, the better it's going to be. So you want to push the majority of your carbohydrates for the day later in the day. So probably evening meal and then snack before bed, ready to go into the race the next day. Obviously you're going to have carbs throughout the day, but if you're having 500 grams of carbs for the full day, it might be 200 at the start of the day between 9 and 1, for example, and it might be 300 between like 5 and 10 if you think about it like that. So just push carbs towards the end of the day. And if your race is later, I was saying this to the guys, is that we run early, so I run at 7 a.m. usually, so don't really have a chance to fuel up beforehand because I don't want to get up super early, etc. Whereas if your race is 10 o'clock, then you've got time to fuel beforehand. So I would recommend, again, good amount of carbohydrates before the race, maybe a couple of hours. Bagels, honey, jam, banana, peanut butter, electrolytes. You can get powdered electrolytes, which has got carbs in, maltodextrin, etc. I'll take that around 2 hours before. But again, it's got to make sure that you are not getting gut distress of it or digestive issues of it. So be aware of that. And then obviously it's fueling for the race. So a couple of recommendations is around 0.75 grams of carbs for every kg of your body weight per hour. So again, if you're 100 kilos, we're talking around 75 grams of carbohydrates every hour that you're racing. So if you're half marathon, that's around 2 hours, 75 grams in 1 hour, 75 grams in the next hour. If it's a 4-hour marathon, obviously every hour as well. And then, what you could do is just have one gel roughly every 6 to 7 kilometers. I recommend that. That seems to be really good, a good place to be. That's just more like from a beginner perspective. If you're looking at really focusing on, performance and hitting that carbs, that's what I would sort of look into the 75 grams. But again, that then comes down to how do you react to gels? What's the best source of carbs for you when you're running? Is it going to be liquid form? Is it going to be food form? Is it going to be gels? This is something you're going to experience throughout your prep for your racing. So for me, for example, I'm happy with 2 gels, but then anything after that, if I start to go into 3, 4, and 5s, my gut doesn't like that, my stomach doesn't like that, and it's the last thing that you want on a race is to need to go to the toilet. So be aware of that and maybe swap it for something that's a little bit more easier to digest. It could be a banana, it could be chew bars that you can get. So just have a little look into that and find what suits you. And then lastly, after the race, this is the big one. So what do you do after the race? So as I said, you want to buy back around 80 to 90% of the calories that you've expended, your active calories, not your total calories. That's just the calories that you've burned specifically from that race or from that run. So you want to buy back around 80 to 90%, which again will still put you in a deficit, and it just accounts for any miscalculations. One thing that I would say as well, and one of my clients brought up this to me, is if you are going through a fat loss journey, when you set up your Apple Watch, your Whoop, your Garmin, whatever, it'll ask you to put in your weight that you are when you started. So obviously using that data, it'll spit out what it thinks that you've been based on being that weight. So for example, if you're 100 kilos when you first start, it'll calculate what you roughly been at that weight. But if you're going through a fat loss journey and now you're 90 kilos or you're 92 kilos, you're obviously burning less because you're lighter. So make sure that what your watch says, what your Strava says, what your Garmin says, etc., is where you're at right now and not where you was at the start. And that's something that one of my clients brought up to me and it clicked and I said, oh my God, yeah, because it's not often that we change stuff like that on our apps. We only just track our weight and go, yeah. Whereas our Apple Watch will know what weight we are when we put it in compared to what we weigh. It doesn't know what weight we are now, if that makes sense. So that's just a little bit of an overview in terms of what I would do with nutrition in the prep for the long run or in prep for the race. If you find it useful, again, don't let me know. Give this video a like, put it in the comments so I know that you've gone understood it. If you've got any questions, again, feel free to put them in the comments. Feel free to message me on Instagram, LewisNeil_coaching, and I'll be able to give you some feedback, give you some help towards that as well. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts on it. Don't forget to give this video a subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.